This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1572, Comic Talk. And welcome to the show. I'm Brian Chrisman.
I'm Adam Murdo.
I'm Chris Eberly.
And I'm Bill Ellis.
All right. And that, of course, is our original old classic CGS theme song. We're having a few problems here technically at the studio, as well as with our website,
do me a favor?
as we are all well aware. So I'm not exactly sure many folks are listening to this in a recent time frame. Yeah, we've been made aware that there's some website issues. Brian Deemer, our founder and grand high exalted mystic poobah, is the tech man of the group, and was recently doing some tinkering with the website, and some things fell through the cracks, like the episode archive is no longer there, and other things. So unfortunately, as you record this on September 1st, Brian is up in Arcadia, Maine, without access to a computer. So we are aware of the problem. It's being addressed. I can't say much more than that. So thank you for your patience. So let's just dive in and get to it, shall we? This episode of Comic Geek Speak is brought to you by superherostuff.com. You can go to for all of your superhero stuff. All right. Getting a little rusty there. All right. Well, it's back to school time, kids and adults. So
Yes.
for all your geeky-related needs, whether it's T-shirts, hats, hoodies, PJs, undies, belts, accessories, the spot place to go is superhero stuff, where they have all these things at their disposal. They've got a whole section of new items that I'm going to briefly go over here. Of course, you have a lot of the movie tie-in merchandise or related merchandise, like there's Infinity Gauntlet items like T-shirts. There's all kinds of Suicide Squad character like hats of Harley Quinn and the Joker, which is very popular right now on the convention circuit as well. A lot of Star Wars items, with the movie coming out in December. So Star Wars stuff is on there. Again, just all kinds of great stuff. And they actually recently have a new addition to their content site called The Source. It's filled with latest news, trailers, and editorials featuring your favorite comic books, movies, TV shows, games, and more. So it's another great source, no pun intended, for comic book related news. That's at source.superherostuff.com. So check that out, as well as their site, and subscribe to their newsletter. Follow them on Twitter, because they always are giving out coupon codes for whether it's free shipping or discounted on multiple purchases. So again, for all your superhero needs, go to superherostuff.com. All right. The most recent episode of CGS that was released, besides Murd's Mohatmu episodes, was Murd recently recorded a Time Bubble episode, the 25th time.
That's right.
That's correct. And you did a very good job at the beginning of sort of explaining why we've had no real new episodes in a while. So I want to ask you to repeat that, but if you can, very briefly, in 25 words or less, sort of just give a history of why we haven't really had many episodes done recently.
Summer almost over. People on vacation. Not time to record. Us only human.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Adam, that was succinct and eloquent in its caveman-like tone. Magnificent. Terrific.
Me am bizarro prolix.
Because, yeah, it's been, about 3 weeks since our last recording for CGS, which I guess was our previous episode.
In recent memory.
Yes. But in between there, I mean, we've gathered several times, whether in large groups or small groups. I guess 2 weekends ago from now, we gathered down, some of us, not you, Chris, you weren't invited.
Indeed.
No. Well, Murd, talk. I'm losing my mouth ability to speak here. Mention about the CGS by the Sea.
Well, yes, we did that too. Yes, annually, Usually near the very end of the month of August, I try to have as many members of the Comic Geek Speak and Wildpig Comics extended family down to my family's house in Stone Harbor, New Jersey, as can make it. This year we nearly got everybody in. Unfortunately, Chris had a family vacation to take out in the great state of Minnesota and
Indeed.
could not be with us. And also, Kevin Moyer had to beg off at the last minute for work reasons. But yeah, the whole Brian Deemer family was there. Pants was there. Shane was there for the first time ever.
wonderful.
Danny
that was
and Phil were both
fantastic.
there. And a few other friends as well. Who are not properly members of the cast, but are still always welcome in our midst. And so we were there from Friday evening until Sunday afternoon, approximately. We hung out. We went to the beach and spent a good long time at the beach, longer than we usually do.
I was supposed to work in bed asleep, by the way.
Yes, that's right. Mr. Chrisman was a non-participant in the trip to the beach.
I had my swim trunk packed and everything, but I was super duper tired, so don't want to fall asleep and get a nice sunburn. So I
sleep
I
before
begged
you
off.
arrived on Friday night.
Beg your pardon?
How many hours had you gone without sleep by the time you arrived on Friday
By the
night?
time I arrived, probably about 18 hours. So I was,
Oof.
Is it long enough?
yeah,
So I'm glad you were able to catch up then.
yes.
But yes, we did. We played some DC deck builder games that weekend, and
Yeah, I'm sorry about
what's
that,
other
by the
things?
way.
Well, no, Bill, I mean, thank you for bringing them all along, but Bill had just some amazing gameplays there. I mean, good Lord, he was trumping us soundly. And there's no secret to it. It was just dumb luck, correct?
A little bit of dumb luck. I'm going to claim a little bit of skill.
Yes.
Still can't beat Deemer's daughters. They destroyed me, as only little girls can. And but that was an astounding game that I had, and I still feel bad about it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, thank you very much for, like I said, bringing all them down and indulging me, especially because that's all I want to do is play that all day long. And, so I guess the Teen Titans was the most recent edition.
Yeah, that was the most recent big set to come out.
Mm-hmm.
It's in an orange box and is all about ongoing cards that stay out after you play them until you use them. And it's I'd say it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
How did you guys like it?
Oh, I loved it.
I would have liked it better if you weren't having such a game, Bill. Which I'm sure is not the Titans expansion's fault in any way.
No. It is. I think one of the better ones to come out in recent memory.
If I may, even though I was not present, having worked with Bill so closely all these years, and also, of course, as a close friend, he is a consummate competitor when it comes to gaming. Not in a surly way. Just he's a great competitor. So I'm not surprised that he was running the board, so to speak.
Yes.
Well, Bill, you were doing everything you could to help the rest of us keep up, making helpful suggestions along the way. Trying to make everybody's game the best it could be. It's just that it turns out your game at its best was better than our games at their best.
That was a particularly good one. I don't know what else.
Pants, if I may, I just want to address, just piggyback on what Merge said about our lack of time on the air recently. I just wanted to reassure people that we have some big stuff coming up, most likely later in the month of September. I'm planning a significant new spotlight. All I'll say now is it's going to be entitled Marvel Triple Action. And we'll leave it at that. And we're also going to be talking about our next book of the month at some point in the near future, which is the Judas Contract from the classic New Teen Titans run. So there's really good stuff coming on the pike. Again, as Murd mentioned, once people's schedules kind of resettle into the school year, it'll be far easier for us to organize more regular recordings. So there's a lot to look forward to. And we should point out that we're blessed that Danielle couldn't join us tonight, so Billy stepped in with his noble self, and he's.
Did you say you're blessed that my wife couldn't be here?
No. I was. If I did, I misspoke. I meant that we're blessed that you stepped in her stead because she couldn't be here, and we're honored, of course.
Oh, that's nice. Well, then I am honored too.
Thanks, honey.
Yeah. And we have some shop talk later on in the episode, but
Yes.
just got a little bit of catching up on things. The weekend before the CGS by the Sea, I made my August convention trip. I went to the Connecticut ComicCon. It was August 14th, 15th, and 16th at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Uncasville, Connecticut. My friend John Burke, many months ago, just came across this convention, and he saw they had Tom Mandrake appearing there, as well as Jose Garcia Lopez, who he'd never seen either of those gentlemen before and wanted to get some art from them. So he said, hey, you want to go to the show, Pants? I said, a less than 5-hour drive from my house, and he got us a free hotel. I said, yeah, sure, sign me up. So I hopped in the Pantsmobile and had a very good weekend there. Lot of guests there. I'm going to run down some of the bigger known named guests there. Of course, Roy Thomas was there. Oh God, it was amazing. Louis Simonson, Mike Zeck, Steve McNiven, Walt Simonson, Jim Shooter, Neil Adams, Kevin Conroy, voice actor Kevin Conroy, John Wesley Shipp, John Bogdanove, John Beatty, Jose Garcia Lopez, Tim Seeley, Mike Carlin, Dan Jurgens, Tom Palmer, Ron Garney, Paul Kupperberg, Greg Pak, again, Tom Mandrake. Very, very nice convention. Again, the interesting having it at a casino. There's by the way, a huge casino up there at the Mohegan Sun. I was very, very impressed with that. And they had a very nice-sized convention center inside the casino itself. And there was a promotion going on that weekend where if you signed up for their, casino card, you got $25 in free slot play. It's like, oh, so sign me up. So blew that right away on a Batman TV series slot machine. I actually had budgeted some more money, so I put $20 more on that, and I found a Wonder Woman TV show machine. Put $20 on that. Of course, that was all gone pretty quickly. But that was my budget for gambling at the casino. A lot of cosplay at this convention. There was a gentleman dressed as cosplaying as Bumblebee from the Transformers. In full upright armor. I shot a quick video and tweeted out about that. It was incredible.
For a second there, I thought you meant Bumblebee of the Teen Titans.
Oh, no. No. Real tiny there. No, was not like that. And I added a few signatures to our bound edition of Who's Who. I got Jerry Ordway, Jose Garcia Lopez, Dan Jurgens, Paul Kupperberg, who actually wrote a lot of the entries for that, as well as Mike Zeck and John Beatty. Got them to sign our custom-made bound edition of Who's Who. That was very nice. Did a little bit of shopping. Actually, Chris, I managed to pick up issues 1 and 2 of Thor's.
Oh, great book.
I know you spoke very highly about that, and I didn't really go too crazy with the Secret Wars tie-ins, but I found issue 1 for $1, issue 2 for $2, so I picked them up. I already read them. Actually, tomorrow, as we record this, issue 3 comes out, so I'm going to go to Golden Eagle and pick that up, and I ordered issue 4. You can't really go wrong when you have, I'm drawing a blank, Jason Aaron writing it.
I agree.
So that was very good.
Hans, how was the back issue shopping in general at the show?
It was again in the convention center. There might have been a dozen or so back issue dealers.
Okay.
Maybe a little more than that. Maybe I'm more like between 15 and 18 there. I didn't really do a count, but there's also a lot of artists intermixed in the aisle there. They had a whole section of Artist Alley, but they have other independent artists in the aisles. Again, people selling T-shirts and videos and toys and things. Decent amount of back issues there. Again, from recent stuff, dollar bins. Zap Comics was there, and I always find things at Zap Comics. They're very, very good back issues selection of recent and as far back as like the Silver Age and beyond. So good mix of dealers there. Again, just a lot of the wall books for the hot stuff. Suicide Squad, Daredevil's very hot. I'm gonna have to track down a copy of Elektra before it even goes through the roof further. Issue 168 of Daredevil.
You didn't see any there?
I did, but no. I'm more of a reader copy kind of. I'm a reader copy kind of guy, and not looking for like a mint copy of that. So, and there was room for back issue diving as well as looking at wall books. So, pretty good mix of things. I must compliment them very much so on their panels. They had some incredible panels there. Probably my favorite panel that I can think of in a long time attending. They had a panel with Roy Thomas and Jerry Ordway talking about the Invaders and All-Star Squadron.
Oh, wow.
Now,
Murd, that is made for you.
You look as if your keyboard's a little sticky right
Well, I'm a huge Roy Thomas fan.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I also think Jerry Ordway is the bee's knees. And you know, these two legends talking about two books they really put, you know, Murd, you should have been there for that panel. That was all you.
Yes.
I must agree.
And there was somebody videotaping or videoing, I should say, the panel in the front row. I'm not sure if that's appeared online anywhere, but honest to God, that was one of the best panels I've ever attended at a comic book convention.
Wow.
So much information, so much just free talking back and forth. Listening to Roy Thomas, I could listen to talk to for hours.
Oh, yeah.
The man's been there since the beginning of fandom, not the beginning of fandom, but for a very long time. Of course, Alter Ego, and of course working for Marvel and DC. And his love of those Golden Age characters came through. And of course, Jerry Ordway working on All-Star Squadron, one of his first gigs. And I can't do it justice telling you about it now, but it was a tremendous panel. And when I saw that on there, I said, ooh, I'm going to be there. That was really good.
Was the panel well attended, Pants?
I didn't really look behind me because I was like in the second row. But just as a quick glance around, I'm going to get maybe 25, 30 people there. It was on a Friday evening, around 6 o'clock. But because usually the big crowd is on Saturdays. But just a fantastic panel. And
well, when you read Roy Thomas's interviews that he gives or that he conducts, they're so detailed and just so rich. I'm not surprised it carried over in the verbal presentation as well.
Oh yes, so. It was wonderful. And on Saturday, I attended a couple of other panels as well. Now there was some conflicts with timing and things, so I didn't get to go to all of them. But there was a panel with let's see, let me get this gentleman's name correct. Arlen Schumer. He was talking. He has a book called, I believe, The Silver Age of Comic Book Art.
I have it. It's a great book.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
And he gave a great presentation. He had slides and everything, just talking about the influences of these artists, showing their work, showing what their work has come today as far as like it's involved in the movies and TV shows. And again, I'm doing it very poor justice, but it was a fascinating panel. I call it the tail end of that because it was in the same room as the panel afterwards. And the panel I went to go see was with, again, Paul Kupperberg and Roy Thomas, as well as a couple others, talking about Charlton Comics.
Oh,
yes.
Because they're actually sort of reviving Charlton Comics in a way.
That's Thomas's first job as a writer.
That's exactly correct. And he told the story of how he got the job and how the people at Charlton were sort of like
Vulcan, yeah.
Right.
The people at Charlton at the time, it was founded by two guys who met and talked about it while they were in prison.
Yes.
Again, a fascinating panel. I actually couldn't stay for the whole panel because it started late. I had to go to the panel after that. But there was some great Steve Ditko anecdotes because he did some work for them. Just amazing stuff. But then after that, I went over to a panel on the death of Superman with Mike Carlin, Jerry Ordway, Louis Simonson, John Bogdanove, and Dan Jurgens. Again, that was a packed house for that panel. And,
wow.
That was sort of in my wheelhouse when I was, the 90s getting into a lot of us are from that era of our peer group. And, I knew some of the anecdotes and, again, just fascinating stuff. And hearing the behind the scenes, because, of course, this is, pre-internet age for the most part. And the reactions, how it got picked up on the media and the frenzy behind it. Just a very, very fun panel. They really had some ace panels at this convention. Well, they had some great talent at the convention, so that was to be expected. And one of the media guests they had there was John Wesley Shipp, of course, who played the original Flash in a 1990-91 TV series. And I don't know how, but back in the day, I had a couple of 8x10 photos of the Flash TV series, and I grabbed one to have him sign it. I actually had a little bit of a chance to chat with him very briefly. Very personable guy. And shortly after The Flash ended, a year or two later, he was on NYPD Blue for a couple of episodes.
Oh.
And I remember one of his first lines, if not his first line on the show, he's walking down the precinct stairs, and he says something along the lines of, "Yeah, I blew all my Flash money." So I started to ask the question. He knew what I was going to say right away. He remembered the line exactly, and he said that line was actually in the script. It's like, wasn't an ad-lib or anything. I said, well, that was pretty cool. And he had his own panel on Sunday, and that panel was packed. And he was talking about the old Flash, the new Flash, his career, behind-the-scenes stunts. Wonderful guy, very personable, very nice, very happy to be on the new show in some small part, sort of to being a mentor to Grant Gustin on the new show. And, didn't really give too much away, if anything, about the new show because he really couldn't, but just like very, very much looking forward to that. So,
did he reflect on his time on Dawson's Creek?
A little bit as well. He actually also is an Emmy award-winning actor. He won a couple of Emmys prior to The Flash for some soap opera work he did, which I did not know. So you learn something new every day.
Indeed you do.
Yeah, so a very fun convention. And, of course, I'm leaving out the most exciting part of the convention. Because, of course, it's at a casino. Yeah. And, of course, listeners, please bear with me as I go into go for a tangent here. They advertised they're having a poker tournament at the casino for people who attended the comic show. You had to register in advance, which I did. It was a $100 buy-in, and, of course, some money goes to the casino, the rest goes to the pot. But they only had 16 people take part in the tournament. They had up to 50 seats, but only 16 took part. So it was Saturday night at the con, and, of course, long story short, I won the tournament. So, now, that was amazing. It was only a 16-player tournament, but I won the tournament. Actually, Ming Chen from Comic Book Men TV series was actually one of the players, and he had a bounty on his head. If you knocked him out, you would have won, in this case, would have been $160. I was in the hand he got knocked out on, but was pushed out aside and actually had the losing hand. But I ended up winning $640 for the tournament.
Nice. Well done, Pants.
Which more than paid for my entire weekend because the hotel was free, so I paid for everything there. And now that ended Sunday morning about 1:15. So I had to walk back to my car through the entire casino, and then I did a half day at the show on Sunday and only spent $4 more. So I brought everything else home, but that was very nice. I mean, yes, there was some luck involved, but Pants does have some skills, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, Pants, here's what I'm going to ask you.
Yes.
Is it time to leave Toys R Us behind and take up the life that Kenny Rogers has sung about and make your living as a professional gambler?
As I stroke my beard here, it's like, yes, it is. I'm jonesing to get back into another tournament. It was many years I actually played in a live tournament. And I had the nerves initially, but eventually skill took over.
Terrific.
Listen, Pants, I think I got a big head, so...
Third person, ladies and gentlemen.
That was a lot of fun.
We troll in the back alleys of every comic convention where it's the poker tournament.
Well,
Lance needs to win the poker tournament.
I'm more of a tournament player, not a cash game player. But I heard some stories. I was actually at a lot of these Pittsburgh Comicons in the past when I actually played in one tournament there. But they had tournaments like upstairs in the penthouse where I hear stories of Jim Lee and Michael Turner playing. And they'd be throwing pages for, like, here's a Hush page in the pot there. Here's some other artists. I'm like, oh, my God. Amazing.
Pants, you may have found your calling here.
Well, from your lips to God's ears. So I had a very good time up there. It was good to see my friend John again. And, yeah. Now, they're actually calling it next year. It's called Terrificon. I guess there was some difficulty with, again, the name again for next year. But it's next year, same place, Mohegan Sun Casino, August 19th, 20th, and 21st of 2016. So perhaps I may have to go back again and defend my title for the poker tournament. Perhaps. We shall see. Speaking of conventions... See how this is for a segue. In the not-too-distant future, actually September 12th and 13th, down in Oaks, PA, at the Greater Philadelphia Convention Center, is RetroCon. Looking forward to that.
Looking forward to it, absolutely.
Yes, myself, Mr. Eberly, Shane, some other friends of mine, as well as, I forgot to mention, Jamie D's father will be set up there to sell our wares.
That's right.
Shane and I have been getting our toy collection in order. I know Chris has some used trades, some Toon tumblers, and probably some high-end books, I think you mentioned.
That's correct, sir. That's correct, yep.
And Jamie's father has some of Jamie's old toys. You know, he had a lot of Muppet toys, other superhero toys. So if you're in the area and hear this in time, please stop by and say hi. It's also a great convention for, you know, again, retro stuff in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Absolutely.
You know, G.I. Joe, Transformers, you know, old video games. Again, there'll be comics. There'll be voice actors.
Right, the voice of Lion-O and Count Chocula and Sonny the Cocoa Puffs bird, Larry Kinney.
Yes. But does his name ring a bell to you, Murd? John Moshida.
It does not.
The voice of Micro Machines, and also known as the quick-talking guy from FedEx.
Oh, yes. I remember his mustache very well.
Yeah,
but
I think he also did the voice of a Blur. And it's also, Shane's going to love this, it's the 30th anniversary of the Mask toy line and cartoon, and there'll be a panel there, which will include the voice of Matt Tracker himself, Doug Stone. So if you're there, check it out. You can go to retrocons.com for more information. And again, I am very much looking forward to that. For the fellowship of everybody in our area, we'll all be pretty much bunched together. But of course, I need more money.
Well, Pants, again, based on how you did last year, before the show even opened,
well,
I think your prospects are good.
We shall see.
And if Shane's, based on what Shane described to us about what he's bringing, I think he's going to do well too. And if Jamie D's father's bringing that kind of, I think you're all going to do well.
Yes.
So.
Oh, definitely.
It's again to piggyback what Pants was saying. This is such a fun show just to walk around in. It's a very large space, and it was jam packed with so many great toys. I got a Mego Falcon, which was very exciting. It's an outstanding show. So I highly recommend if you're in the region, check it out. Comics, toys, video games. It's well worth attending.
Speaking of conventions, I think 2 weeks after that, let me see, I'll do the math here. That would be September 25th, 26th, and 27th is the Baltimore ComicCon. I'll be heading down there. Shane's actually going to head down, I think, at least one of the days. Very much looking forward to that. And then after that, in October, is the New York Comic-Con. Again, we won't be setting up there. We'll just be out there wandering around aimlessly, as I like to put it there. And speaking of New York Comic-Con, one of our sponsors, Geek Nation Tours, actually has a few spots left for the New York Comic-Con tour, which very importantly includes tickets to the show, because I think the show is sold out.
That is an enticement.
Yeah, so check out Geek Nation Tours for the New York Comic-Con tour. Very much looking forward to that. Guys, you have anything else to bring up? Any other topics in the last few weeks that catch your eye you want to chat about?
Actually, just jumping back for a minute, Pants. I'm ashamed to say I have yet to go to the Baltimore Con.
Wow.
It's usually around the time when my school year begins.
That's correct.
Now this year you said it's the end of the month, correct?
Yeah, September 25th, 26th, and 27th.
All right, maybe I can. Oh wait, it's the pre-release weekend, Billy.
That's fine. I'm pretty sure I got that covered.
I know, but I like to be present.
Pre-release of what, pray tell?
Bill, you go ahead.
It's what is that? The end of September. That's going to be the pre-release tournament for the new Magic set, Battle for Zendikar.
Okay.
Which is coming out a week after that, in October. But that's not something that should affect whether or not you go to Baltimore.
I know, but I just like to be where the action is, Billy.
Fair enough.
But
the
the
action
reason
will be at the store.
Yes, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I've always heard. I just want you guys to kind of talk about this a little bit. That Baltimore is a real comic-friendly show.
Yes.
Is that consistently the case in terms of its tone and atmosphere and so forth? Or
yeah, I would say so. I've been attending that since 2003. I think I might have missed 2 years when there was conflicts. But whether it's for the whole show, because it used to be a 2-day show. This is the second year it's having a 3-day show.
Okay.
And again, it's very comic centric. It's right, Diamond is right nearby there, so they always have some sort of Diamond Summit or something. So get a lot of the retailers involved with the convention. A lot of great talent, writers and artists. It's just a real, and focused. Now they have added in the last few years a couple of celebrities. I think last year they actually had who played Chewbacca. Help me out here with his character.
Peter Mayhew.
Yeah, Peter Mayhew appeared. This year they're having James Olmos and 2 of the cast members from Arrow, Katie Cassidy and Paul Blackthorne, will be appearing. Of course, Black Canary and Quentin Lance. So they'll be appearing. So they're not going crazy, just small stuff there, but it's comic related and sci-fi related. That sort of be the trend that's going on here. But yeah, mostly all about comic. I can go through the guest list, but the guest list is tremendous.
You don't have to.
It's huge.
People can check that online, but I've always heard that it's just the kind of show. People always tell me it's the kind of show that I would enjoy.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also where the Harvey Awards are held, which is sort of the People's Choice Awards, if you will, of the comic book world.
Right. Well, hopefully, maybe I can make it down this time because it'd be nice to go to a show that's so centered on comics.
Yes.
So.
Well, absolutely. If you
would have a good time.
If you do, drop me a line so I can just know where not to go when you're there.
Excellent little broadside there, panel.
A little tiny bit.
Well done.
I do want to mention briefly another passion of mine. I guess people know as comic book art. And there was recently a heritage auction which had some very interesting pieces go off on here, just proving to me once again that I will never own any of these kind of pages. The big thing was there was a 2-page splash from X-Men 137. John Byrne. Like the title page flash, like everybody was on it, all the X-Men at the time, went for over $167,000.
Jesus.
Now, that's not really my wheelhouse of collecting, but that raised a few eyebrows. But I've always wanted, and probably never get, a Watchmen page. Well, they had the final page from issue 10, where Rorschach and...
Night Owl.
Yeah, Night Owl.
Night Owl, yeah.
They are approaching Ozymandias' hideout. It has the quote from Along the Watchtower, which riders were approaching and one began to howl. That page went for over $20,000. So no Watchmen pages for Pants.
Pants, let me ask you a question because
Certainly.
you're so well experienced in this part of just comic book collecting. Do you think that these very high priced pages are being bought by a very small group of people who are basically just the same people buying these pages? What's your opinion?
I can't really speak to that officially, but I read some of the forums and talk to people and know. And yes, there are some people who have the money to spend on this, but there are also, and it only takes 2 to tango to get these prices up here like this.
Yeah.
2 people who really want the same piece. But it's also a very secretive world sometimes. Hush, hush. Myself included, I try to keep some of my things close to the chest. But
Understood.
Yeah, Watchmen.
I was just curious because obviously 99% of the people in this country can't afford to buy something like that.
No.
So, when you turned me on to that Black Panther art that I bought last summer, which was wonderful, and I got quite a few pages, but I had to use the PayPal loan service to buy those, and overall they weren't even that expensive. It's just a large number of them. So I'm always fascinated by the business dynamics, like who's buying this stuff, because
right.
I have to imagine it's a very elite clientele who's able to do that.
I would say that's probably a good assessment on your part.
They're just enormous investments. So
right.
I was just curious.
But as far as my buying goes, I usually buy what I like, which is a good advice for anybody. Buy what you like. Like, for instance, at the Connecticut ComicCon, Dan Jurgens was there, and he had some artwork in his portfolio, and he had the artwork that was used in the Multiversity guidebook for Earth 9, the Tangier. He had the original drawing of what he used for that, with Adam, Batman, the Green Lantern, Flash, and there was the character on the page. And it was the original art used for that, and it was under $200.
Oh, wow.
For Dan Jurgens' published art and finished off by Norm Rapmund and it was on a full comic book page. It actually was shrunk down, obviously, for the issues on a half page. But I love Dan Jurgens' work. It was a beautiful piece, and it was affordable. So there you go. And actually, also at the Connecticut Con, there was an inker who was set up there, named was Steve Montano. Did some work with a lot of the tops in the 90s, like on Jurassic Park, a couple of things. But he actually had a few pages of She-Hulk there, which kind of caught my eye, because they had some obscure characters on there, some obscure villains. I think I was describing the pages I bought to Murd, and he not only knew the characters, but he could tell the dialogue in the thing without even seeing the page. I was like, oh my God.
I'd seen the page, well, not in person, but I'd seen a reproduction of the page once before, and it was a pretty funny little scene. So,
yeah.
Just lodged in my memory, as so many things seem to do.
Right. So I bought,
outstanding.
I got 2 pages. It was from issue 59, and it had She-Hulk battling like Blizzard and Backlash and Boomerang and a couple other, Whirlwind, Porcupine. It was fun pages. I liked how it looked, and I got them for $50 each.
Ugh.
So that was great. And I was talking to Steve about it, and because he did more finishes on that page, which, in order the pencil did loose pencils, he just got to finish it up. And when I went home and actually, on the $1 I spent on a comic book Sunday was at Zap Comics to get this issue I had in their dollar bin. And the penciler was Pat Olaf.
Ah.
And I'm a huge Pat Olaf fan. I was like, well, that explains why I was drawn to the page. So again, there are affordable things out there for what you like. Now, of course, there are things that are for several $1,000s. I'm a big fan of the Barry Allen Silver and Bronze Age Flash. There was a Bronze Age Flash cover, issue 233, went for over $8,000.
Wow.
And also, not as much as Murd, I'm a big fan of the Crisis on Infinite Earths. And when I got into art collecting back in 2000, 2004, one of my goals was to get a Crisis page in Infinite Earths. I've never gotten it, and now I may never, because some of these prices, they had on the auction pages 9 and 10 from issue 2. Murd, it's the page, I'm sure you know it, would have all the heroes lined up at the top.
Oh, yes.
And all the things in the middle. That went for over $10,000. So I was like, oh, geez. So, but again,
Pants, is there a lot of Crisis art out there, or we don't know?
There is quite a lot out there.
Is there? Okay.
I'm actually sort of compiling my own artist edition, if you will, and saving scans of these pages.
Yeah.
I've got a good amount of scans, not all of them. But there are probably some pages that are in collector's hand which you just aren't going to see light of day, which is fine. But I wanted to have a page at some point, and maybe I'll get it at some point when I win my poker tournaments in the future. So yeah, those prices really made me okay. But like I said, I buy what I like, and I'm happy with what I have. But I would like to have a Crisis page at some point. Good gosh, anything else we need to mention here? Anybody read any recent issues they want to speak about? I mentioned Thor's, on Chris's recommendation, is very, very engaging.
May I make a suggestion?
You certainly
Please.
may.
Well, I'll tell you what. Chris will let you go first in a minute here, but I was going to suggest, getting back to the issue of the CGS by the Sea gatherings down in Stone Harbor.
Yes.
One thing I always like to try and set aside time for whenever we're all down there together is to just go out on the front porch of the house, sit there, take the breeze, enjoy each other's company, and read a few comics.
Yes.
And this was one of Jamie's favorite things to do whenever he came to Stone Harbor.
Yes,
And
it
so
was. Yes, it was.
I tend to think of that as Jamie D. Memorial Quiet Time when we go out there and do that. So I was thinking perhaps those of us who were present could talk about what comics they happen to have with them during the weekend in Stone Harbor. And Chris, since you weren't there, perhaps you should go first if you've read anything recently you'd like to talk about.
And actually, why don't you guys, Murd, I think that's a wonderful topic to spread. Why don't you guys address that first, then I'll jump in at the end. Go ahead.
Okay. Brian, did you bring along a stack of things to read?
Not as far as comics go. We did get a galley edition, an advanced copy of the upcoming Black Widow book.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The actual, prose book. I did read a chapter or two of that. But again, it's a book, so I sort of kind of lost interest when there was no pictures in it after a little while. But it was because actually comes out. I think it's in the most recent preview. It's been solicited. But I did bring an actual comics down to read. But I know Billy and Danny had a huge stack of books.
I had brought a lot of trades, and Danny had brought a lot of single issues to catch up on. I don't remember everything she brought. I think it was like some later issues of Prez and things like that I brought home.
That is the current Prez, right? Not the 70s
that's
Prez?
The current Prez, not the 70s Prez. That is Corn Dog Girl Prez. It's a very, very fun book. A little bit ham-fisted politically, but
as Prez should be.
Yes, very. It paints this very creepy dystopian capitalist future. And then I brought along some manga trades that I didn't read at all, and and Echo, which I reread by Terry Moore, which is one of my favorites. Really, really well written science fiction.
Didn't you have Giant Days from Boom?
Yes, we did. We also had that. I've been reading the heck out of that book because it's by one of my favorite webcomic authors, John Allison. Authors and artists, though he's not drawing Giant Days. But that one's a lot of fun, following one of his older characters from his webcomic series, Esther Vandergroot, and two of her friends in college. And if you've been a fan of John Allison's work, you've known this Esther character since she was a little girl, and it's very fun to see these entire webcomic worlds that he builds generation at a time.
How about you, Murd?
Well, I have a whole bunch of comics down here all the time, but I didn't get a chance to read all that much. But I took my Jamie D. Memorial quiet time on Sunday evening when almost everybody had gone home. By then, our friend Danielle Corsetto was the only one left by then. So we were out there on the porch, and she was catching up on the one and only comic series that she buys monthly from her LCS in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and that is The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. So she had a few issues of that. Yeah, that's got Corsetto written all over it, so I'm
sure
so happy
does.
to be a fan of that. She also had Chip Zdarsky's new Kaptara series from Image, and a one-shot, something else that seems like it has Corsetto written all over it, Stuff About Sex for Guys Who Are Not Like Total Idiots. Hey, I can suddenly see Bill. There's Bill.
And his T-shirt says, "Don't hate the player, hate the game."
Hate the game.
There we go. So, DC Deck Builder.
No, I love DC Deck Builder.
I figured out how to work the video because Danny just got home.
Good timing.
Yes.
Okay, so the thing I was reading was actually nothing recent. It's really something like time bubble fodder, but because it's actually a trade, there's Danny. Hi, Danny.
Hail number one.
I'll hold it up for the benefit of those of you who can actually see me.
Oh, nice.
Perfect, Murd.
Yes, it was a Wildpig purchase.
Thank you, sir.
Nice.
Showcase presents Eclipso, hero and villain in one man. The entire Silver Age run of Eclipso from House of Secrets number
61 to 80. I have all the issues.
I'm sure you do. So it's 20 stories, all written by that master of Drek, Bob Haney. There's 5 stories illustrated by Alex Toth, so some good artwork to enjoy there. The first 2 were by Lee Elias, and the rest of the run was rounded out by a guy named Jack Sparling, who I believe is best known for his art on the Secret Six, the original Silver Age Secret Six series. And it's some pretty messed up and corny Silver Age stuff. I remember a few years ago I was livid over DC's treatment of the Eclipso character when they made Jean Loring Eclipso and were just completely eviscerating whatever rules that had been established for the Eclipso character in the Eclipso The Darkness Within crossover, of which you and I, Pants, are both big fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but then I went back and read this Silver Age stuff and realized just how loose and mutable those rules were in the very beginning anyway. So compared to what Bob Haney did with the character that he created in the first place, after all, throwing Jean Loring into the role and the other stuff they did with the character subsequent to that seems almost tame. So yeah, it's cheese ball Silver Age weirdness, but which I can enjoy on its own merits, and for its own its own natural cheesiness. That's what I read over that weekend.
Well, Adam, next forward, I look forward to joining you on the porch for a healthy read.
Mm-hmm.
So,
have you already read anything recently you'd like to?
Well, I can't. I'll talk about it, but I can't go into too many details because it's all in prep for the next spotlight. All I'll say is I'm reading a healthy dose of certain Marvel titles from the 1970s and 1980s.
Oh,
and I'm having a hell of a time, and I mean that in the best possible way. And when we do that spotlight and I actually reveal the characters we're going to be covering, all we made clear. One thing I want to say right off the bat, though, is how much I'm enjoying the way comics were written in the 1980s, because they weren't afraid to be verbose. And sometimes that could be a bit onerous, but sometimes it's such a pleasure to read, to see the writer cut loose in terms of narrative and description and giving more for the characters to say. Granted, it's a style of writing that pretty much has passed away, certainly a lot of the so-called mainstream titles. And I can see in some reasons why it would, but having grown up in that time, reading these older books really made me nostalgic for that. And the other thing I noticed, and I know Murd and Pants will especially appreciate this, was there was such a greater emphasis on continuity then, because it was only about 25 years of history. I'm talking about Marvel titles here. So everything was so much tighter, and you had a much greater palpable sense of that universe and how everything connected that really has been lost now in many ways. So it's been a real treat to go back in time and read these certain characters' adventures from the 1970s and the 1980s. It's a bygone era of the comic book medium that is worth revisiting, and we will revisit it in great detail when it comes to these characters in hopefully a few short weeks. So there you go.
Yeah, I got some research to do. To be able to participate in class, as it were.
I look forward to it, brother.
I'm sorry, do you have something to say there, Murd, or did I interrupt you there?
Nope.
I recently got my DCBS shipment, and that included issues 2 of Archie, and We Stand on Guard.
Oh, woo!
Yeah, that's some good comics there. Somebody had posted somewhere about if I asked if I was going to go on with Archie now that they've announced that Mark Waid is going on past issue 3. It's like, yes, I am very much enjoying his take on Archie. In issue 2, we're going to see Veronica for the first time.
Yep.
And again, just good stuff continuing on. Again, can't go off Fiona Staples' artwork.
Oh, tremendous. And
again, in very vague terms here, We Stand on Guard, Brian K. Vaughan with the U.S. attacking Canada. Wow. Just amazing stuff, Chris.
Well, I couldn't concur more. I mean, once again, you've read issue 2, right?
I
Vance?
certainly have, yes.
Okay. Billy, you're reading that book, aren't you?
I am. Issue 3 is, as Pants said, is coming out tomorrow, and I can't wait
terrific. Okay. And Murd, you're not reading that book, correct?
Why would you assume that, Chris?
No. Well, because of the time bubble. I just assumed that.
Murd's going to read that book in 15
Reading as distinct from purchasing with an eye to reading at a later time.
Fair enough. Then I won't spoil anything. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't. But that, Pants, again, I'm a broken record about Brian Vaughan, but there's a reason for that, because I think he's the greatest writer in comics, basically. Just by the sheer breadth of what he can do and the various topics he takes on. I mean, you're going from, Runaways to Why the Last Man to Ex Machina to Saga to We Stand on Guard. I'm forgetting other stuff in between.
Of course, Pride of Baghdad.
Pride of Baghdad. I mean, he's done Batman work. I mean, there's other, like Greg Ruck I consider way up there as well with his Lazarus work. But Vaughan, I just think, is in a class by himself.
Vaughan hasn't written a bad comic. I don't think
agree.
There's a comic you could find, and it has his name as the author, and you would say it's bad in any sense.
I would agree
with that. And some
of
my favorite series have been by him. Why the Last Man's just tremendous.
Yes. So, Murd, when you get to We Stand on Guard, maybe a decade from now.
At least.
I look forward to having that discussion with you, my friend. So,
all right.
Well, I've read the first issue. I saw the controversial Superman is a Canadian scene.
that's right. Yep.
Oh, yes, there are some discussions to be had. And the fact that there's a huge American war droid sneaking up on that character as he makes that bold claim.
Yep.
Yes, it just stresses just exactly how contestable that statement was. A bit of graphic irony.
Indeed.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I think actually a good segue into a topic you're talking about, recent comics. Chris, first, if you could, as well as Billy, give us a little bit of the background of yourself and Wildpig Comics, because you've been in the retail business for quite some time, and the store has gone through some major changes in the past. So give us a bit of a quick history in 25 words or less. No.
Honored, my friend. I could never replicate Murd's magnificent primeval approach to 25 words or less. But, Billy, jump in any time, of course. Wildpig Comics, we've been open for 16 years. We've had 3 different locations. Our current location we've been at, except for a 2-year interruption, since 2002. That 2-year interruption is when we closed our brick and mortar store in 2010. Then we did shows for a couple of years, and we reopened the store in the same location in Kenilworth, New Jersey, 14 South Michigan Avenue, in 2012. The store, when it originally opened, its focus was totally comics, new comics, back issues, and trades. And we pretty much stuck with that for many years. And when I decided to reopen the store in 2012, Bill had worked for me, as had Danielle and our friend Laura, and for quite a few years. And I was so impressed with Bill's work ethic, his ability to relate to deal with people, his intellect, that I decided, also because of my family obligations and my increasingly onerous day job as a teacher, that I needed a manager. And Bill was the ideal choice for that. And furthermore, I realized when I reopened that we were going to have gaming, because unless you're some massive city store, in my experience, especially now, it is simply impossible to maintain a comic book store financially unless you also have a significant gaming supplement, or as well as perhaps other supplements. And Bill was the perfect person to helm that. And I have nothing but praise for what he's done since. And our store now, we're approaching our 17th anniversary in the coming year. And it's very much still a comic book store, but it also now has a significant gaming presence, especially in Magic the Gathering, which Bill has done a magnificent job in building up a gaming community for the shop. And frankly, the store would not be open today were it not for the gaming component. So that's where we are, and we're hoping to continue to go boldly into the future. And maybe even someday I can pay myself, and that's one of our goals.
Right. So,
sort of in keeping with that, Bill and I have recently made some, because we make all our decisions together about what we're going to be doing. And in fact, Bill had spoken to you guys about this topic that we're going to address now when he was down the shore with you. And I think your discussion also is going to add further sort of credence to what we're going to be doing.
Right. So basically, you're not new to the retail game.
No.
You've been in it for a long time, and Bill's been working as your manager for quite some time and been in the store for a while. So you guys know what you're doing. I've seen you guys in action, and you're professional, you're knowledgeable, and you're in not a bad location there. But, so talk about what your upcoming changes are, gentlemen.
Well, and this was a long time coming, in that we've been discussing this for probably at least a couple of years, right, Billy?
I would say at least a year solid.
At least a year, yeah.
That we've been seriously contemplating this move.
So, just to curtail the suspense, basically what we're doing, we're eliminating new comic books from our store, starting later on in the fall. We're not going to do it tomorrow, but within the next, by November, night will fall on the Floppy in Wildpig Comics. We're going to be maintaining our trade paperbacks, new and used. We're going to continue to service the subscribers that we have. And we're going to maintain and continue to grow our back issue selection, which is becoming more and more lucrative for us.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, sir. And this is a decision Bill and I came to. It was not an easy decision to make because I'm Mr. Comic Book.
Yeah.
And I entered this business back in 1999, and before even that, I was doing shows to sell comic books to people. But in the past couple years, it's gotten to the point where to continue to try to maintain a new comic wall and to continue to bring in new comics, it's getting to the point where financially it's actually imperiling our entire operation. And along with some other areas we're going to be fine-tuning as well that aren't not really comic related. But and Bill and I have gone back because we always have healthy debates. And it got to the point where at the end of this summer where we were like, this just isn't working anymore. And I think it's just a reflection of if comic book shops outside of like Midtown Comics and places like that want to persist, it may be something that other stores, it depends on their circumstances, of course, want to address. For example, I was in Minneapolis, and I went to Big Brain Comics.
Okay.
Which is one of the major stores in that city. I really like the store. And I went in there. I'd never been in there before. I'd heard of it. I'd never been in. And now, granted, this is a store in a city, but the entire store was just trade paperbacks.
Wow.
There was a handful of floppies, which weren't even – they were like shoved into like the bookcases with the accompanying trade titles with like a new marker next to them. And I remember years ago our glorious founder Brian Deemer talked about – I can't remember the store. I think it was in Brooklyn that he went to, and he said it was all trades. And for the past, as Bill said, at least a year, if not more, I've been wrestling with that concept because I start with the diamond bills I have to deal with. More and more, you start to feel like a sucker, and you start to feel like that this is hurting me and my business more than it's actually helping my business survive and grow. And the combination of the price tag, which is just getting absurd, and that's going to continue to get out of reach. And that combined with the fact that, and Bill can also speak to this, of course, as well, as fewer people read new comics, you have a growing problem with what I call the deadbeat issue. What the deadbeat issue is, and every store has to deal with this, I'm sure Golden Eagle has to deal with it, you have certain customers who are subscribers who, for whatever reason, will stick you with large amounts of books, which they just either don't pay for, they vanish, or they pay for them at an excruciatingly slow pace. Now, when comics were more robust, that's back in the 90s, early 2000s, that wasn't necessarily as damaging, although it was still infuriating because, you're losing money. Because new comics have a very short shelf life, and once they've kind of passed that time, as you can attest to when you go to shows, they're in a bargain bin. When you have deadbeats now, and most of our customers are wonderful, I want to emphasize that, but we have a handful who, I'll be blunt, we're a real pain in the ass. And those people financially really, really hurt us now. Because there aren't enough people reading new comics, I think, in general, and certainly in my, mid-sized suburban store. And so when you have people like that, even just 3 or 4, it can be financially extremely, almost devastating. Because you got to pay for the books very quickly. And I won't get into Diamond's terms because that's just not a topic I want to discuss on the air. But let's just say nobody's going out of their way to make this easier for the retailer. Not the comic book companies, not the distributor, and a very small but very damaging minority of customers. So these were all factors that contributed to our decision, and because I'm looking at this not only as a lover of the media but also as a businessman who wants, because Bill has done such a great job at sort of this new version of Wildpig Comics, and you guys have been inside, you've seen what we've done. We've had CGS listeners who've been purchasing back issues online with me, which has been wonderful. that there's a lot of great things we have going for us, and it's gotten to a point where there are certain things, if we continue to maintain them, it could drag down everything we're trying to do. And it pains me to say that new comics are part of that, but they are. And I know there's certain listeners that get tired of hearing about, this topic. You know what? Tough. I'm a comic book retailer, and I have something to add to this discussion when it comes to that. And, I think it's important to talk about this part of the hobby and the medium that maybe some people don't think about necessarily. But as a retailer, I have to, and Bill has to. And, I think it's a decision that we didn't take lightly, and it's just something we have to do, and it's not going to affect our general love of comics and devotion to the medium, which will continue to show through our trades and our back issues and our sales and so forth. But it's just we just can't sustain that anymore.
The thing with the new issues is it is complicated. With the new issues that we were getting in, we weren't selling enough of them off of the wall to be able to afford to continue having them, and we weren't really getting enough of them that we could do returns on a large scale. Which is something you can do with comic books, but you have to have enough to be able to do that for the title. So because we couldn't order them in a great amount, and I'm kind of surprised that more city places actually don't carry those, because you would get enough traffic to support a floppy issue wall and then be able to ship the rest back. We just weren't getting enough, as much as those the big boutiques could get to be able to afford to do it. It's a funny sort of catch-22 that you have to deal with there. The other problem, and Chris talked about the, I don't call it the deadbeat situation. I know Chris does.
That's just my term. That's true.
When you have a lapsed reservist, that does very much impact you, because people will not get back to you with money. You're sitting on product for a month or 2 months. That can become difficult. Major part of what we've tried to do now is make sure that people are able to come, and we send out reminders and things like that. But when people do stick us with a large amount of books, it is unfortunately a huge financial hit. It can be $1,000 at a time worth of product that ends up sitting even over a small 2-month period. And all of that has contributed to the things that we have to do with the new comics and with the reserve system.
And Bill, one thing I wanted to add is that, because I'm sure some people are thinking this now as they're listening, well, why didn't you just charge a fee for all your reservists? Because some stores do that when you sign up.
That was something that we considered. I remember we were talking about that.
Yeah.
But I think the best thing for us to do right now is to back off that entirely and not lose the money. And then if we want to come back to the single issue, if that's still part of the medium down the road, I'm not convinced that it's entirely failing. I think there are economic reasons why it's failing, because it is inevitably going to get more and more expensive. And yet people aren't able to necessarily keep up with the ability to afford the prices that they go up to, $3.99, as they're going to go up to $4.99, $5.99. That we can expect, because it doesn't. As technology progresses, it doesn't get any easier or quicker to make a comic book. It's still got to be somebody at a desk drawing it, scanning it, penciling it. Even with the advent of computers, scanning, digital inks, digital coloring, there's still a cap to how quickly you can produce a comic book, and that's going to always make the price go up.
And not only that, Bill, I'm sorry, another great point you made in our discussions, and again, it appeals to my fascination with history and current events and economics, is that, and you're right on the money, Bill, you kind of referred to it before, is that people's wages are not keeping pace with the cost of living in general in this country. Now, that's a macroeconomic problem that just doesn't apply, of course, to buy a comic book. But in our own little niche world here, it's indicative of the fact that for a large swath of the population, people aren't making enough to keep up with this, and I think that's going to be a problem with a lot of entertainment. I mean, just going to the movies, for example. I mean, you want to take your family to the movies. I mean, that could be quite an investment if you have to bring 4 or 5 people to the movies. So I mean, Bill hit the nail on the head there. It's just a very tough thing, and a decision that was not made very lightly because it was something I agonized over for quite some time. But I could see where it was going, and Bill is a more optimistic person than I am, which is to his credit. And we've talked about this before. Personally, I think the floppy comic is ultimately doomed, and I don't want to be one of those stores that's going, "Oh, wait, what happened?" And suddenly we're in this deep hole because we relied on something that is clearly becoming a dinosaur. And that's been the back of my head for a long time, that I wanted to move away from something I feel that and this is a purely cold business standpoint, does not have much of a future for the size of the store we have. Bill made another good point. We're not a huge store in some bustling urban environment. People are walking by the hundreds and so forth. And in that situation, you might still do very well with new comics. But for the kind of store we have, for our location and the clientele we have, for me, the writing was on the wall for quite some time. And I'll also, from a personal note, I'm just getting tired as someone who's invested really their whole life for over 15 years in this business. I'm getting tired of playing certain people's game, and I'll just leave it at that, because it's hurting me financially, and I don't feel like the entities that are providing this entertainment really give a shit about me or other similar retailers who are struggling with, in some ways, some very insurmountable challenges. And Bill made another good point of discussions. I keep going back to all the great points Bill made because he made so many. And this is a point he made off the air, which is, when you think about it, the comic reservation system is insane. Because basically, even if you charge a fee, which I didn't want to do because most of our customers are great, and as a teacher I hate the notion of punishing a whole bunch of people because of a few dipshits. I can't stand that mentality. That's why another reason why I never wanted to charge fees, because 90% of our customers are wonderful. But basically, you're setting up this system where you are relying on people with very little investment on their part to come in and pick up this stuff at leisure, and you're hoping that they're going to do that on a regular basis because you don't have a lot of time to pay for this stuff. And when comics were bustling, years past, which the 90s, early 2000s, and I was doing that system, and it worked a hell of a lot better because there was enough people to absorb it. Now, as powerful and as wonderful as so many of the properties are in movies and video games and so forth, we've talked about this many times, you don't see a lot of that crossover, certainly in our size store. And it's becoming an increasingly unaffordable. And I'm someone who doesn't like to feel like a fool in terms of business, and when I don't like having my intelligence insulted, and more I'm feeling that way, and it's just time for all those reasons, basically. So
the crossover stuff with video games and movies, we do see that because we've seen it as not in so far as droves of people storming the store for Daredevil trades when Daredevil comes out. That's not a reasonable expectation, I don't think.
No,
but
of course not.
We do see something of it in the sort of cultural shift where we see more people walking through, and those people are not inclined to buy the single issue. They're inclined to buy either the very, very cheap back issue, which people will do, and that's why we maintain our 50-cent books. And cheap entertainment is going to do very well if we are not cheap, but inexpensive. Excuse me. Inexpensive entertainment will do very well in a time of economic downturn. And single issues are becoming too much per issue. To where now you have these trades. People enjoy reading the whole story together without having to wait all that time in between, and you're getting a cheaper per issue in the trade paperback format, that's just going to be much better for most people, much better for their wallets, where they can go every so often and get a $20 book rather than have to go on a monthly basis for a $4 book. That after 5 of those, 6 of those, it's going to add up to that $20 book that you just got.
And Bill made a great point there because, and I agree with him. I mean,
I do that.
Yeah. that you see that shift to the trades. Even the companies, we've talked about this many times for many years now, have changed their model of how they publish monthly comics where they accommodate a trade arc. And I mentioned earlier how I was reading some old comics from the 80s to prepare for a future spotlight. And it's so different back then because they weren't writing for the trade paperback. And you see the difference in just the storytelling techniques as a consequence of that, for better or for worse. And in terms of the cheap entertainment, I mean, I love back issues. I mean, we all know that, and I love to aggressively build our back issues. And I find that we have about 30,000 50-cent comics in the store from the 1970s to the present, and I've started to add more higher-end stuff again because I got away from that for a couple of years. But what am I doing? When I buy a collection, I usually buy it in bulk, and instead of being greedy, I pass on that savings to my customers. So, for example, I got in a recent collection the first Scott Lang Ant-Man, which because of the movie now, the book is in the guide for well over $100 if it's in high grade. Well, I paid 20 cents for that comic. So I sold it to a guy for $40. He was thrilled. I made a tremendous profit on that book, and he got a book way under guide. Everybody wins. And I firmly believe that by continuing to follow that model, we're going to do okay. And maybe someday I can pay myself as a consequence. But new comics are not friendly to that model anymore. And again, Bill hit the nail on the head. I mean, we have one guy, I'm not going to use the person's name, but it's one of the aforementioned, deadbeats, who tries to buy everything under the sun like a garbage scow, and the bill is just off the hook. I mean, it's like a goddamn car. It's like more than one car payment, essentially. And I remember when Bill told me when he went down to CGS Wildpig by the Sea, you guys were talking about where you buy your new comics, and with the occasional exception, you buy everything from DCB Service. And why wouldn't you? Because you can actually afford it. And I was wondering what you guys thought, because that's the service you use, just how you feel about this whole topic, and so forth.
Well, I, for one, am sort of dyed in the wool. I got to have it in my hands, physical, single issues. I have a few trades, of course, for older product that is just priced out of my way to buy it, but I love the single issues. I've got over 22,000 single issues in my collection in my house. I can't even find certain issues there. But I have, with the recent, price increases and things, I've toned back, or that's not the right word. I've scaled back. Like, for instance, I just DC, with one or two exceptions, I don't buy any of their books anymore. And I was a huge DC new reader for 20 years or so, and I just stopped. And Marvel, with their new relaunch on Secret Wars, I'm going through the previews for that and seeing all these $3.99 books, all these books that just I have a passing interest in. I'm cutting down on that as well. Now, a lot of the independent books, like Image, are one if we talked about, We Stand on Guard and Archie and things, but a lot of the books from Image are like $2.99, so that's an incentive there. But I'm trying to focus down my collecting because it is getting too expensive, but I still love the single issue, so I'm satisfied. Here, you're not going to be handing them, but I understand it completely. I'm on both topics here. This is a great discussion for others on the forums and the interwebs.
I look forward to it. Yeah.
I'm very. Again, your history tells me that this was an easy decision. It must have been an agonizing decision. You agonized it over for so many years. I know you love the single issues, and I'm just wondering if this is going to be something other stores make, not because of you doing it, but have considered themselves, smaller market stores. Now, of course, Midtown Comics, Mile High Comics, places like that, DC, basically actually also has a physical brick and mortar store as well. That's probably not going to happen with them. And how do they do it? Volume, of course. I wish I was smarter and could look at the future and see that. I'm just a schmo. Just give me my comics and I'll read them. I'm not. This is just a fascinating topic to me, and it's a very bold move you're making.
That's why one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up, because, not to toot horns or anything like that. It's just I want, because everybody listens to the show, I would assume, loves comics. And I'd like people to feel aware of, some of the decision-making that goes on from the retail perspective. And again, we're just one store.
Right.
Everybody does something differently. And what doesn't work for us works, for somebody else. So I'm not saying we're right and somebody else is wrong or anything ridiculous like that. It's just that, and like you, I love new comics. And I read them. I bring a stack home every week. But if I wasn't a retailer who didn't get the discount he gets, I would only be able to afford a fraction of those books. Because I got a wife and 2 kids. Right so, and I think about when I closed for 2 years, and naturally when you close and you reopen, you're not going to get everybody back you had. Just time has passed, people move on, whatever the reasons are. But I'm surprised we have the number of reservists we have, and that speaks to the work Bill has been doing. I didn't even think we get this many, the number that we have now, and and like you were saying, you love that single book, and you mentioned the Image comics. The books that I'm gonna regret the most having to give up on the wall are the Image books, because between their letters pages, the essays, they actually try. Because Marvel and DC don't give a shit, but Image actually tries to, and other independent creators, to give you more, that when you pay $2.99 or $3.50 for their comic, you're getting a good, solid reading experience in terms also of duration of time with that book. But like Bill said, a lot of those books also, when they move into trade, I've lost track of how many times we've sold Saga trades, right? Or when Why the Last Man was big, how many times we would sell those trades, or evergreens like Preacher or Watchmen or what have you. They're always going to sell because people say, "Hey, have you read this book? You should try it." And they're not going to put the floppy in their hand in most cases. They're going to put the trade paperback. As Bill mentioned, this model. When I went into Big Brain, I was like, "This just makes sense." It just makes sense. So that's what I feel we need to do for our store.
Now,
essentially,
have you told your customers about this yet?
This is the first time we're mentioning.
Yeah, right. Some will hear about it on this because some listen. Others don't listen, so they won't. But the people who are reserving for us, we're going to continue to get them their books. It's not going to affect anything that they want.
Right. It's just walk-ups and there's no wall books.
Yeah, and the future, I'll make a more formal email announcement, and we'll put something on the website where we'll go into not like in great detail, but what we're doing and why and so forth. I think most people, they get it. I'm sorry, Murd, go ahead.
No, it's just I think I was misunderstanding much of what you guys were saying here. So you're saying that you're not leaving all of your reservists out in the cold. You will still honor the subscription list that you have.
Every subscriber we have will continue to get. We're not going to. Those are good customers. We're not going to say, "Okay, goodbye." That's
right.
That just not only would that just feel slimy, but just from a business standpoint, that'd be foolish. Because those are people who regularly come into your store and support you. So, but anyway,
I thought you were proposing to eliminate subscription service at Wildpig altogether.
Oh no! Yeah, no, because as Chris has said, many of those customers are very, very good. They come in. What we are going to do is eliminate the new issues that we put up on the wall, hoping that they sell from week to week.
All right. So
stuff that's reserved for people is still going to go in, and we're just going to rely even more on previews and making sure people, get their previews orders in to continue to help serve our reservist clients.
After all, Murd, Bill, Daniel, and I still have to get our comic books every month. So, I got to get all my books. So we'll be happy to get them for the reservists that are subscribing with us. But we have these. They're now on a table, but we would have these short boxes on the floor where Bill or whoever else was helping us out would at the end of a week or a month would put sort of the books that didn't sell, and over time I'm like, God, now it's 2 boxes, now it's 3, and you see that reoccurring. And we don't order extravagantly at all. I mean, our orders are very based on the size of our store and our economic circumstances and just people's buying habits and so forth. Our ordering is very, very, very tightly controlled, especially at this point. And it's still, and we were trying. Bill had came up with this great idea, which I really liked, where we were trying to push different indie titles from issue 1, like certain miniseries, to expose these books, because to people just so they try them, and that worked to some degree. But go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I can explain what we did with our new wall, so that maybe people have an idea of what they came into, what they would see if they came into the store on a regular basis. We would only carry a new series up to issue 3. And that way we had a lot of room on the wall. As issue 4s came out, we were able to take titles off the wall and make more space for upcoming titles that then people could buy 3 issues of, see if they like it, get on the subscription of it. And that was the idea, that people could come in, try these books out. And the thing was, maintaining that selection of books for people to try out was too costly. You would end up with a bunch of issues, maybe 5 titles you missed during a month, where nobody signs up for a subscription, nobody buys it off the wall, and it ends up going into your recent comics bin. Those kind of things, and you have to guess 2 months in advance what people are going to want, and you've got to fill those spaces on the wall. It just, a lot of the model doesn't make sense to continue right now. And I don't think that this is the looming death of the floppy, because of many reasons, not least of which are the extra entertainment that you can churn out stories, and those stories turn into cartoons, movies, etc., for people to consume in other ways. I don't think floppies are going away. I think we'll be able to come back to them at a later point, with hopefully a better strategy for how to manage them for people.
As I said, Bill's optimism is one of the reasons why he's a great manager. We'll see what happens there for sure. What I want to do is we're going to do more with kids comics. We're not getting rid of kids comics. They're still going to be on the wall, because I'm a huge proponent of encouraging kids, A, to read in general, because Americans in general don't read anything, and B, to encourage the growth of the medium from the ground up. And there's some very good kids comics out there today, because there was a period of time where there really weren't many comics really for kids. And now you see a nicer variety of titles that are tailor-made for young people, very young kids. We want to encourage that, so we're going to continue to do that, tweak that, and work with that. And I want to, in a very controlled, modest way, continue to expand our trade paperback selection. And now our used selection is always growing, and is another big part of our store, but also new trade paperbacks as well, because there's a lot of stories you want people to experience. And as Bill mentioned, trades are great for getting people hooked on books. I don't know how many times I've sold a Preacher Volume 1 in the 16 years I've been a retailer, because people heard about it or we recommended it, and then and usually without fail, that person comes back in usually less than a month and buys the entire series in trade paperback form. And in terms of the floppies, I mean, like Bill said, I'm a pig in its own feces selling back issues, and more as always, we do quite well selling our very inexpensive back issues. I think many people like pants, like myself, still love the feel of a comic book. Mm-hmm. Reading an actual comic book, not on a screen, but holding it, leafing through the pages. And if you're a geeky bozo like me, you're sniffing the old stuff from the 70s, because it just has that certain aroma that harkens back to your childhood. Murd knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes, and Shane knows even better than I.
Yes. Danielle's again thinking what a complete tool I am, and she's correct. And as she shakes her head on the screen, well done, my dear. And, so that's something that, as long as I'm alive and the store is open, that's going to be celebrated. And Bill will tell you, because he's in the shop more than I am, we got people that come in and buy back issues every week.
Oh, yeah.
They'll come in and drop $10 or $20, and, they'll walk out with armful of books.
Yeah, as an aside, on the way to the Connecticut Comicon, I stopped. It was a halfway point at Wildpig. Actually, surprised Bill. I was there. I came in unannounced, as I like to do. But I spent more in back issues, physical copies, than I did at the convention. I bought like 60 back issues at your store and didn't buy that many at the convention. So kudos to you, sir.
Pansy, I totally missed your presence.
Oh.
I knew there was something radiant about the store the next time I was in.
I left your present there in the bathroom, so.
Some power, eh? All right. Excellent. That's so creepy. So, again, I like to give... I just think it's a great topic for discussion because everybody has different views on it, and I look forward to what people say on the forums because, everybody looks at it from a different perspective. I mean, my perspective is very retailer-based.
Right. Coupled
with the fact that I'm also a lover of the medium since I was a little kid. So those two parts of myself were in conflict as well. The notion of not having the new books versus the businessman going, this just does not make sense anymore, and it's hurting us. Like Magic the Gathering, and Bill's done a wonderful job at that. Again, because it's not an area that I was well versed in at all, and I'm still learning quite a bit about, is that the amount of people who come in for that and who spend for that, it still takes me aback, and I don't mean that negatively to some degree. And I don't see that with new comics. You don't see that kind of response. Or people just coming in and sitting down and doing D&D or playing board games or, like Bill said, people want entertainment. It's just a question of how is it presented to them and how much does it cost. The other great point he made was the production of a floppy comic. Yes, you have computers now and all that, of course, but in general, it still has to go through a certain production process that inevitably will lead to rising costs. As with anything, as time passes. So these are all things that have to be considered when I'm trying to juggle a Diamond bill with a gaming distribution bill and a Magic bill, and I want to buy this collection. I have to think about, what's going to make money and what is not going to make money. And unfortunately, as crass as that may sound, sometimes it really just comes down to that if you want to keep the doors open. Mm-hmm. So, and again, we're in a business that is completely unforgiving. I mean, we are talking about a niche within a niche that is so much just a want, as much as some people may think otherwise, that you've got to be really careful. And another great point Bill made, and sometimes people don't realize this, we have to order all new books 2 months ahead of time. Now, certain books you can go, this is going to be great because, Brian Vaughan wrote it, so we're going to get so many copies. Other books like, all right, let's try this. It sounds interesting, and you get it. Like that book, Scarlet Couture. Oof. Right? It visually looked so interesting. I'm like, wow, a 15-year-old wrote this. It was terrible. Now we got hit. Now because we had to take in 2 or 3 issues of that book, which no one bought because of that 2-month commitment. So that also that's always a challenge. Just ordering. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have a pretty significant amount of experience now with reading comics, ordering comics. I still make calls sometimes that are bad, like, oh, no one bought this book. So that's a factor too.
Yes, I'm very curious to see. We'll have to visit this topic in a couple of months.
Sure.
When they've been removed from your store. But again, people can still get books in your store. It's just they have to reserve them. You can't walk into the store and have new books on the shelf. That's not good.
New books are going to be on the wall for the next 2 months, Pants, because we already had to order stuff.
Right, but so maybe. But I mean, starting let's say the new year, essentially.
Yeah.
You won't see new books on the shelf.
What you're going to see, and Bill and I will tweak this and fine tune it. So I'm speaking provisionally, but what you're going to see is more kids stuff, which I feel very strongly about, and you're going to see because we're still going to have a new wall for trades. I should have mentioned.
Oh
that
yes,
earlier.
absolutely. I would think.
And we have that now. We have like a section of the wall that's just the new trades that have come out this week or this month or what have you. We're always rotating stuff, but and we'll probably expand that a little bit as well. We may also bring in additional, bookcases because we have stuff that sometimes kind of gets bunched up as you're cycling things out and bringing things in and so forth. Because I feel very strongly about the trade paperback, both the used trade paperbacks, which are just money, because we buy them bulk, we sell them cheap, and then the new stuff, which tends to sell slower, in some cases, but it still sells. And as Bill mentioned, it has that. The trade paperback is the perfect entry point now, I think, for people who maybe they saw one of the films of one of the comic properties. They want to get into it. Like Preacher's going to be a television show, I believe, at some point.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if Why the Last Man eventually ends up as a television show. It's tailor-made for it. People are going to want to read those books, but they're not going to want to go to some back issue bin and fork out God knows how much money, because most stores, unlike us, aren't selling books at 50 cents or a dollar. So, the trade is just there, and it's on your bookshelf. Like Shane always talks about, I like seeing it on my bookshelf. That's what he always says. There's a lot of people, myself included, who feel that way. And like I said, if I didn't have a retailer account, I can only buy a handful of floppies a month. I would have to agonize over what I'm going to buy in a month. I don't have to worry about that as much. But, a lot of – you see it on the forums, people talking about what they had to cut out or, going through the previews and how hard it is sometimes. And, this is a classic Shane topic that he agonizes every month about, what he can get and so forth. These are things people have to think about just as a consumer.
Yeah.
So.
But, yeah, I'm very interested to see in, let's say, 3-4 months' time what the reaction is of your store. I mean, because I don't know how many – people you get walking in and perusing your new comics wall, but
yeah, we'll find out, and I'll definitely be back to talk about this move. People are averse to the idea. I'd run it by some people and gotten some strange and varied reactions to it, but overall, it has to work for business, and right now, as Chris was saying, this is what's going to work for our business. And then we can always come back to other ideas down the line.
And to piggyback on that, the other thing, if you go into business, you have to be open to taking risks. And I've always been someone in my life in general, and people who know me can attest to this, I'm not afraid to take risks in any area of my life for the most part, unless it involves my children or something, so precious like that. But whether, my personal life or my business life or my professional life, I'm not afraid of that because you can't be, because otherwise I would never have a business in the first place. I wouldn't have my wife and a lot of other great things in my life, frankly. And you also sometimes have to be very bold and go, you know what? This is what we have to do. And the chips will fall where they may, but one thing I've kind of retaught myself, or not reminded myself of just recently, is that I have to trust. I have very good instincts, and those are instincts that I've honed over many years of just experience in professional and personal life. And usually I have to listen to my instincts because usually, not always, but usually they're right, and that's what my instincts are telling me. And math, and just accounting. And numbers, which Pants can certainly appreciate. Mm-hmm. That they don't lie, there's certain realities that have become clear to us. And as Bill mentioned, I mentioned again, just for our operation, what we're trying to do as a store. I mean, our store more and more now is a hybrid of a very robust and growing gaming community and a very dedicated comic book clientele, who not only subscribers, but also a very growing clientele of back issue people and trade people. And, those are the people we want to continue to serve as well as we possibly can. And to do that, we have to make some adjustments to make sure those people are getting the products we want to get to them. So.
Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Going forward now, as you go out seeking new inventory for your epic Wildpig 50-cent back issue sales,
yes, mm-hmm.
Will you make it a higher priority now to relieve your fellow long-suffering retailers of their boxes full of recent unsold shelf books?
That's a great question, Murd. Here's the way I approach buying. Basically, so you're always fine-tuning. What I found has really worked for me now is I basically buy back issues in three different ways. Now, the best way always is collectors or customers who contact you or come into your shop and say, hey, I have a collection I want to sell. Because And I'm always honest with people up front. I say, look, I buy everything in bulk. If you have something in here that's amazing, I'll tell you, and I'll tell you I can't afford this. You should sell it, this way. But I'm not going to buy that from you. But most people know what they have already in most cases. And I buy in bulk, which is the best way to go, because then I can sell those comics for 50 cents or $1, or like that Scott Lang First Ant-Man book, I can price it way under guide, and everybody wins, basically. Now, like I'll be looking at a collection very shortly in western New Jersey, which looks very promising. So there's that. Otherwise, in all the years I've gone to shows, and I'm frank about myself, I have a very low opinion of most other comic book dealers. That's who I am. I have a very low opinion of a lot of them. I think many of them validate the Simpsons comic book store guy stereotype. Having said that, there's some I've known over the years who I consider dear friends, who I know are honorable people and will treat me right and do right by me as I do right by them. And so there's a couple of people, like my friend John Paul, who runs the JerseyComicBookShows.com, is one of the most honorable guys in the entire comic book retailing world. He's running his shows for 20 years. He will do whatever he can to give you the best deal he possibly can afford. I buy from him. I buy from my friend Mike Williams, whose Pants is bought from, who's been a dealer for years at John's shows. There's no more honorable guy. If you go to those shows, just ask for Mike Williams. He's this really strong-looking guy in a Batman shirt. He will do right by you. Otherwise, who do I buy from? It's Ides in Pittsburgh, because I've been going there for about 20 years, and I have a good relationship with the manager, Ken, and I work with them. That's really where I buy my back issues from. Do I go into random stores and buy back issues? Very rarely, because I'll go into stores. Because I like to go into stores and see what they're doing. They may have thought of something great that I hadn't thought of, or maybe they're doing something I think is foolish that I just said, let's not do that, for example. And I go in a lot of these stores in many states, not just New Jersey, as I travel throughout the years. And most of them, it's the classic stereotype. The back issues are overpriced, and that's all I need to see, and there's nothing else. I'm not going to spend any money there because, there's not going to be any deal in it for me that I need to turn around a profit and still treat my customers fairly and give them a sense that they're making out as well. So that's the formula I've followed and will probably continue to follow for as long as I'm doing this, because it works. Like Pants mentioned when he goes to these shows. Now, to be fair, some of the dealers at shows are great if you're just a guy who wants to buy comics for yourself. But if as a retailer, I need a certain discount. And some guys, either because they can't, which I totally understand, or they just won't, which I don't understand as well, and nor am I forgiving of, they just can't provide you with that. So I just can't buy from them. But that's because I'm a retailer. There was I won't name names. There was a retailer Danielle had the misfortune of working for one time as a favor at a New York Comicon, and she felt she had to hose herself down at the end of the weekend. You remember, my dear. And that retailer, if you're just wanting to buy books as a private collector, you can get some good deals. As a retailer, not even close. And again, some retailers, they just can't because they have a certain bottom line, which I totally respect and understand, because I'm in that situation too. Others, though, it's just the greed factor. And my feeling has always been, I want a return customer, and I'm also a human being, and I know what it feels like to be on the other side of the register. And if someone feels like that we're helping them out a little bit, they're going to keep coming back to my shop, and we see that over and over and over again. That's why we have 50-cent comics. That's why we have low-price back issues. We're still making money on them, but we're doing it in a way that everybody feels like they're winning. And before I owned a shop, going back to the 90s and the 80s, I went to various comic book stores. Again, I won't name names. And with very few exceptions, I always felt like these people are here to rip me off any way they possibly can. And I felt like I had a shower, when I left. My beloved mother, when I was a kid, would go, and I've mentioned this before, would go into the first shop I ever went to, near where I live in Central Jersey, one of the earliest shops in the state. And she really loved me because she would go in there to get my monthly G.I. Joe, and she was just disgusted, not only by the atmosphere, which was classic shitstorm spattered comic shop, but also just the scoundrel, slimy nature of the proprietor. And I still see that all the time. And it's those people that I still want to do business with for a whole host of reasons. So that was a long-winded answer to your query, Murd. Sorry about that, but thank you.
It's the best kind of answer to a Quinn's query, Chris, and I thank you for it.
Sure. What else, Pants? Anything?
I'm not sure. Have we, to coin a phrase from you, shot our bolt?
I think I've probably talked so ad nauseum about this at this point that people are probably rolling their eyes with their earbuds on. So, unless Bill has anything to add.
Danny says she's a little nauseated too.
Yeah, well, I said, look, and I've known Danielle since she was 19 years old, and she more than almost anybody has the right to shake her head in disgust. So, I deserve it.
When did you work at the New York Comic Con?
Oh,
Disgusted by.
It was years ago.
Oh, 6. How long have we been dating or together? 5, 6 years.
I think 6 years.
So 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
And did you hold yourself down for real?
No, but it was
Oh.
it was just the
Okay.
classic car salesman type
Yes.
of trying to sell children $50 comics.
Oof.
Yeah.
Ha!
Yeah. No, and look, if that works for someone and people want to buy it, because clearly they are, that's more power to you, I suppose. That's just not what we do. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why I'm basically poor. But, I really do believe, and I still do that in the long term, because this is all a long game. This kind of business is very much a long game. You will be rewarded. And in some ways we already are. With the approach that we, and frankly, I couldn't do it any other way because I wouldn't be able to look myself in the mirror. So it's comics. We're not curing cancer. So I just feel like there's a way to go about it where you can make decent money at it, but you can also make people feel like they're part of something that's positive, rather than all right, I have to go home now and scrub the ooze off me, essentially.
Burn my clothes.
So, yeah. But, yeah, I think we've shot our bolt, Pants.
All right. Anything else from the other gentleman on the line and lady on the line there?
Well, one word of thanks I'd like to send out to listener Trevor Tupper, a.k.a. FX Matt on the forums. Mm-hmm. Pants and I met him down at Heroes Con recently, and while we were talking, he asked me if I'd ever read Greg Maguire's novel Wicked, which is his own interpretation of the marvelous land of Oz. It's like the story of the Wicked Witch of the West, well before Dorothy ever arrived in Oz. And I answered that I had never read that book or any of its sequels, and he just got this kind of disappointed look on his face. And then just a few weeks ago, a package arrived at the CGS Studios containing Trevor's own paperback copy of Wicked for me to look over. So thank you very much, Trevor, for sending me that. As I always must disclaim whenever somebody whenever somebody sends me something to read, I can't make any guarantees as to when it's actually going to get read. But it's nice to have that particular permutation of the story, L. Frank Baum's Oz, in my possession, so that I can take a look at it when I want to. I have seen the musical, and based on that, I get the feeling, and comments my mother, who has read the book, has made, I get the feeling I probably won't much like what I read when I do read it, but at least I know that the option is now. So thank you very much, FX Matt, for that.
All right.
All right. Well, that was a good bit of discussion there. I wish you the best, gentlemen. And
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
as always, we shall revisit this topic in the future.
Look forward to it.
All right. Well, once again, this episode of Comic Geek Speak was brought to you by SuperheroStuff.com. And go to for all of your superhero stuff.
Oh,
Excellent.
Stop.
Okay. If you want to leave us a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. You can send us an email. We're comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. We're Comic Geek Speak. You can join in the conversation at thecomicforums.com. You can talk back about this topic as well as many other topics, thecomicforums.com. We want to thank everyone who contributes to the show. We really appreciate it. Could not do without you. And as always, we're uniting the most mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.